Our front bench is back to talk about that. Christy Clark, Marco Mendicino, James Moore, and Lisa Rader here. James, I'll start with you. I was just telling Marco in the break, I host like a talk radio program across the country. And in weeks, this is definitely the most engaged story that people, we were getting texts nonstop throughout the few hours this afternoon. What have you been thinking as this unfolded over the last 24 hours?
If I was in the Jimmy Kimmel writer room looking at his sort of transcript for the monologue in which he gave that joke, I would have said, don't do that. Charlie Kirk was murdered, and everybody saw the video. He hasn't had his funeral yet. Maybe leave his name out of your mouth for a while. There's lots of other things to talk about, and don't do that. And so if people say, well, Jimmy Kimmel went ahead, told the joke, he's being held accountable by his employer, that's fair, but I don't actually think that that's what's going on here. Look, I always thought it was an odd business decision for the late night talk shows in the United States to sort of decide that 40% of Americans aren't worthy of being their audience, and so they just slam Donald Trump constantly. But even that, I don't think is really what's going on here, right? And I'm glad that you said the thing that you said at the end, right? Which is that Donald Trump said that Stephen Colbert was first. He hopes that Jimmy Kimmel is next. Here we are, and that there'll be other late night hosts that'll be fired as well. The ratings are down. That's true. It's probably a bad business proposition for a lot of these folks. That's probably true as well. But the idea that Jimmy Kimmel told this joke, the head of the FCC, which is the American version of the CRTC, went on Benny Johnson's podcast and said that ABC can either do this the easy way or the hard way, basically threatening to shut down Jimmy Kimmel. And they're the people who are going to be overseeing whether or not these mergers go forward, and therefore, billions of dollars of investment are on the line. It's kind of an easy business decision to throw Jimmy Kimmel under the bus and to make this happen, but that obviously sends a chill. One of the things that I'm looking for and I'm curious about, just as this cultural moment happens in the United States, is what is Tony Hinchcliffe, what is Joe Rogan, Shane Gillis, and the manosphere who liked Donald Trump because he was pro-free speech, as Charlie Kirk was. As all this is going on and people's voices are being chilled because people are being asked to not laugh at certain jokes, I wonder what the comedian bro culture thinks of this chilling effect on comedians who are telling jokes that are maybe inappropriate, but being done so at the threatening voice of the President of the United States. It's a fascinating cultural moment in the United States.
Yeah, I had sort of a similar interest last night, and I wanted to watch on Fox, for example, like how they were reacting, because they are, most of the hosts there are huge proponents, and lots of them were supportive of Trump, Christie. But one, I was watching, Laura Ingraham, was saying, I think he's going to be back on air. She was expressing some concern and sort of the idea of the way in which this happened, but on the whole, there wasn't like an immediate backlash to it from that kind of area of the media. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts on how this is going down?
This is absolutely alarming to me. It is. I can't describe to you how worrisome it should be that the most powerful government in the world has decided that they're going to go after the comics and the actors and the people who offer free speech and stimulate debate, who have always been on the front lines of criticizing politicians, that they can get canceled by the government in a free and democratic society. This kind of thing happens in Russia. It happens in China. It happens in North Korea. We have never seen something like this happen in the United States. And the idea that America is free is now, I think, something that we all should very seriously question. When the President of the United States and his appointees can come out and say, we don't believe you have the right to say something that might have offended them on air, because we don't like it, not because it was wrong, not because it was libelous, but because they don't like the politics of it. Every autocrat in the world has gone after the comics and the actors and the theater practitioners first. That's what they go after. And I watch this from, and I don't care what side of the partisan divide you're on, this isn't good for anybody, not on the right, not on the left, because when you start stifling free speech and you start deciding that there are some things that are acceptable for the government to have you say, we don't have free speech anymore. And I just think of all of the complaints that people might have against Donald Trump, I would say that this is the single worst and most alarming thing that he's done since he became president again.
Lisa, what do you think?
I don't think that this is the first time a TV personality has been taken off the air because of something that they said. And it certainly has happened in Canada. Don Cherry is a great example. It's happened in the United States with another comedian. Roseanne Barr is an example. You can't tell me that this hasn't happened before. It's happening at a time right now when different people are having very strong opinions on it. I think James laid out the table extremely well. For me, if I had a show that was getting 129,000 viewers a night, that's it. That's what the ratings show. I would take my first opportunity to jettison it. He's getting hardly any views from anybody in the 18 to 49 demographic. That's the people who purchase things. The younger generation doesn't know who Jimmy Kimmel is unless he's doing some hits on TikTok. It was a good excuse and an opportunity for them to retool and, I don't know, put on an infomercial at that time of night. Who knows? They may get more viewers that way. So what's happening, though, is we've turned it into a cultural moment and saying it's because of authoritarianism, when this has happened on both sides of the divide for many, many years. Sometimes you say something and you are actually held accountable for it, and it's done through your employments.
Yeah, I think I sort of take what everybody's saying. I know there's some disagreement, but if I could maybe distill it and throw it over to you, Marco. Like, I take the point that it's happened before, and I was looking at all the examples today, actually, before I talked about this on radio, that Lisa is bringing up. The nature, for example, of what Roseanne Barr said was a little different than what Jimmy Kimmel said. And maybe the bigger difference that I saw was that it's the president, essentially this is like the third example of the president saying, this thing that's being out there on the traditional media, which he's identified, and I understand why, as sort of like an antithetical to his point of view, these people should not be saying this, right? It's the third time there was Face the Nation and editing that the White House got involved with, and then there's Stephen Colbert. So employers can make whatever decisions they want.
It's the weaponization of the FCC that's the most alarming thing, right? That's what it is. If you take the 20 most offensive things Jimmy Kimmel has said, this isn't one of them. It's that the chair of the FCC, who's an appointee of the president, said you can do this the easy way or the hard way, and they got rid of him. That's the weaponization of the regulatory.
Unlike Don Cherry, it's a totally different situation.
I think, but Lisa's point is that
Prime Minister of Canada didn't come out and say, and neither did any of the political people around him. We should cancel Don Cherry because of things he said that were politically offensive.
I got to give Marco. I understand that. I got to give Marco the floor. I do understand that there are differences, but I also understand it's not the first time people have been canceled for things that they say. The difference is it's Trump saying this is what should happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think of all the interventions, I'd be most inclined to agree with where James is at. I mean, look, I think a comedian's worst nightmare is actually not censorship. It's like when the joke is so tasteless that the crickets start asking for their refunds. So, and I do think that like political violence is so polarizing right now. So that's my first observation, that anytime you sort of wade into making light of somebody who was just assassinated, that it will be particularly sensitive. But the second point that I want to pick up on that I don't think has been made yet is that even if the studio doesn't do a 180 and Jimmy Kimmel never comes back, he can open up shop tomorrow, start a podcast, and go out there and pitch his audience. And I think that is one of the unintended consequences of stymieing him in this particular forum, which is that he will be able to go out there and, exercise his free speech rights and try to, gain his own audience like a la Joe Rogan.
Christy, I know everyone wants to respond. I'm very sorry. I'm literally at the end of the show. I promise when we reconvene, I think there'll be another one, so we'll be able to talk about it then. Thanks, everyone, for your insights. I appreciate it. Marco Mendicino, Christy Clark, James Moore, and Lisa Wright.